This call is now being recorded.
Sir, is my screen visible?
No.
Okay, sir, just a second. Sir, is it visible now?
No. Now it has started. Yes.
Okay, sir.
Though I can see only your laptop screen probably. I can't see your PPT.
Yes.
If you're using. Now I can
Sir, is
see.
it? Okay,
Yeah.
sir. So, today I, Krishna and Aditi are going to give our presentation on the topic Art as Technique, which is by Viktor Shklovsky. So, first of all, we will learn what is formalism, because this essay is basically an example of Russian formalism. And before understanding what exactly Russian formalism is, we should be aware what is exactly formalism. Formalism. In literary theory, formalism refers to critical approaches that analyze, interpret, or evaluate the inherent features of a text. These features include not only grammar and syntax but also literary devices such as meter and figures of speech. The formalist approach reduces the importance of a text historical, biographical, and cultural context. Formalism attacked conventional approaches to literature and proposed scientific method to study poetry. They believed poetry was a special use of language. They oppose symbolism and subjectivism. In their view, there is difference between art and ordinary life. So, formalist view of literary language. Literary language is created by distorting ordinary language. Not only literary writing, but all art is a matter of technique. The formalist differentiation between poetic and practical language helped in evolving a scientific basis for the study of literature. So, now we will have a look at the Russian formalism. Russian formalism was a school of literary criticism in Russia from the 1910s to the 1930s. It includes the work of a number of highly influential Russian and Soviet scholars who revolutionized literary criticism between 1914 and 1930s by establishing the specificity and autonomy of poetic language and literature. Russian formalism exerted a major influence on thinkers like Mikhail Bakhtin and Yuri Lotman, and on structuralism as a whole. The movement's members had a relevant influence on modern literary criticism as it developed in the structuralist and post-structuralist periods. Under Stalin, it becomes a pejorative term for elitist art. So now I would request Aditi Mode to explain us about the author Viktor Shklovsky.
Good afternoon. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to tell you something about our author, Shklovsky. Shklovsky was born on 24 Jan 1893. He was one of the most important literary and cultural theorists of 20th century. He was a Russian writer associated with formalism. He worked for some time as a driving trainer in army and later participated in a revolution of 1917. In 1922, he fled to Germany as he was threatened with execution for his political activities. He died in Moscow in 1984 on 6 December. Divya, can you please change the slide? One of the founders of the formalist study group in Petrograd in early 20th century, Shklovsky was one of the most innovative thinkers. In seeking to more literary study out of realm in religion and into that of science, Shklovsky and his colleagues argued against the symbolists who conceived the poetry in spiritual terms. In continuing the effort to exactly delineate the literary quantity of those devices and techniques that separates them from ordinary prose, Shklovsky argued in this essay that such devices impede normal perception. This essay demonstrates the similarity between the formal scholarly undertaking and the innovations in poetry that were occurring at the same time in Europe, such as Dada, concerned with the writing that would be brutally honest and shockingly new. These writers rejected traditional culture and traditional artistic forms that had for them become both boring and overly conventional. Shklovsky, thinking along the similar lines, saw all poetry as producing a shock effect that disrupted the habitual ways of seeing and thinking. Now over to Krishna for the summary of the essay. Thank you.
Hello everyone. My name is Krishna Damecha, and I will talk about the essay Art as Technique. So the first part of the essay, Art as Technique, it talks about the defamiliarization, and the second part talks about different nature of poetry and ordinary language. Further essay says that talks about automation and habit. Victor thinks that as perception becomes habitual, it becomes automatic. Every everything we see around us gradually become a part of our habit, and then we become so sorry. Everything we see around us gradually becomes a part of our habit, and then we become so habituated to them that we don't even notice that. He refers to that situation as unconsciously automatic. Sometimes we leave phrases unfinished and words half expressed. Victor gives an example of algebra in which words are replaced by symbols. Complete, complete words complete words are not expressed in rapid speech. Their initial sounds are barely perceived. Further in essay, the Victor talks about habit kills everything. In such situation when we do not even notice things around us and go on doing it automatically, then in fact we stop living in the fullest sense of the term. If people go on unconsciously doing such things, then they are not living their lives. Habit kills everything, which is not art according to Victor. He gives example of a person cleaning a furniture but does it unconsciously and unaware whether she did it or not. But if someone watches consciously, then only comprehension is possible. Otherwise it is not possible. The lack of self-awareness and others' awareness of one's existence leads to that one is not alive. Thus, doing things in habit is a destroyer of everything. Further in essay, according to Victor's view, art exists that one may recover the sensation of life. It exists to make one feel things. The purpose of art is to impart sensation of things as they are perceived and not as they are known. Further, he talks about language of poetry and prose. Victor claims that there is a difference between language of poetry and that of prose. If we compare between both, the language of prose is direct and economical. Uh, Poetic imagery is just a device of poetic language. It creates abstraction of known things or situation. Practical language is used for communication, but the language of poetry intend to defamiliarize, and by doing so, it gives a new perception about a familiar object. Uh, Poetic speech it's a formed speech. Prose is ordinary. Victor says that art converts familiar things into unfamiliar. He goes on to elaborate that through art we experience object, but even then the object is not important. It is the way of seeing and understanding it that it is important. It is like we know about it, but we don't see it. Tolstoy gave one example in his work Shame, in which he defamiliarized the idea of flogging. Tolstoy makes familiar seem strange by not naming the familiar object. He describes an object as if he was seeing it for the first time, an event as it is as if it were happened for the first time. In describing something, Tolstoy avoid accepted name. In to- Further, there was a story of a horse in Tolstoy. Tolstoy uses a technique of defamiliarization that it makes a common things look like uncommon and unknown. To show it, he uses the horse story from Tolstoy. In this story, the horse describes some features of mankind. The features are well known to all human, but coming from a mouth of the horse, that become unfamiliar and poetic. Thank you for listening to me. That's all I want to say.
Okay, right. So, uh, questions, queries. Questions, queries, doubts. Expand the idea in art as technique. What do you mean by? Can you be more specific, Stavan? Yeah. So can the presenters do it? Let the presenters try. Stavan is asking, what do you mean by, can you elaborate upon art as technique, and what do you mean by defamiliarization? Krishna and others. Divya.
So defamiliarization means like you know that object, but you are just describing that object by its various features.
So how is that defamiliarization?
Uh, like for example, if I how shall I explain? Mm.
You can try
Like
giving an example.
like sir, for example, if an engineer keep like their components in front of you, and you just don't know about it, but the engineer tries to explain it by giving its various features about it,
Then
and then
is
after
it
you come to know.
or whether it is familiarization, because you already don't know anything about it and engineer gives you information about that thing. So is it
Yeah.
familiarization or defamiliarization?
Sir, it becomes familiar after you come to know about the components.
So is it familiarization or defamiliarization?
So defamiliarization means like um, it's familiarization. So
Defamiliarization is familiarization, is it? So
no,
if there
no,
is
no,
a
no, no,
object,
sir.
Divya, who would like to try?
So may I try?
Yeah,
I'm not part of the presentation though.
please try.
Sir, as far as I know, defamiliarization is actually the opposite of what Krishna said. It's about presenting whatever the audience knows in a different way, in a way which which is not recognized by the audience, so that you can gain new perspectives. And
Mhm.
there was this example of a brick wall that I had read about. So let's say there is an object, a big object, or an elephant behind the brick wall, and you want the audience to perceive that elephant in a different way. You just make a hole in the brick wall, a small hole, and let the audience view the elephant from that hole. So basically, the audience would have different perspectives on what they are viewing just via that small hole, something along the lines of that.
Your concept is, you explained correctly, saying that it is opposite of familiarization, opposite of what Krishna is saying, right? And you are also correct when you say that the information that it's presented in a new perspective, so as to have a new way of looking at it, right? Uh, but I'm not sure about your example. Uh, can you think of your own example?
So I can connect it with the alienation effect that was given by Bertolt Brecht,
Okay.
and the distancing that he says that in a play you present ordinary things in a rather different manner, so that the audience feels as if they are really not a part of the play, so that they can get an objective approach towards what is really happening, something like that.
Okay. What are
Sir,
the
and how,
examples? Yeah.
sir, and how does this defamiliarization lead to understanding the literariness that falls under formalism? Because formalism talks about how, like, finding literariness in literature.
Hmm. Yeah. So how would you respond to these questions?
Sir,
Yeah.
so I think defamiliarization is like to represent the same thing but in a different way so that the audience can think or take it is something new, or like it is from the ordinary life, or it is ordinary, but the perspective which is unthinkable, or like the audience were not aware or the readers were not aware, say.
Okay. And why were readers not aware
Sir,
of
because
this?
it happens due to in our daily life, we don't focus on some things in a specific way, or we don't think about some things which are very common. We just go through, we just follow others, and we don't point out some things.
Okay.
Sir,
And
can I
what
like
is the but what is the term used by Shklovsky to explain to you describe what you are saying, Divya? He uses some terms.
Sir,
sir
technique.
I
No, a technique as a matter of art. What does art do? Yet what art is, right? So, but I'm asking you what happens in is that because of familiarization, right? Things that uh, are part of our everyday life, we stop noticing them in their concreteness. For example, remember the first time when you held your new phone in your hand, right? And how conscious and how aware you were of it, the sensations and the color and everything, and how after certain time you're so familiarized with it, right, that you don't even think twice about how it looks or smells or what is it in its all concreteness. And that happens because of habitualization, right? Habitualization is a law of perception according to Shklovsky, that everything in our life we get so familiarized with it that we lose our uh, sensory perception and the attention that we used to give, right? So habitualization is also called algebraization by Shklovsky. That what happens that it becomes just a sign like phone, right? अरे मेरा वो phone लेके आ, right? So it just becomes a sign rather than an experience uh, that you had when you first time held it in your hand, right? So this algebraization or habitualization consumes our entire life. That is how our cognition perception works. And as he says, look at page number 16, habitualization devours work, clothes, furniture, one's wife, and the fear of war. All this, we become so habituated and adapt ourselves that we lose our awareness, right, of it as an object, all our sensory, emotional awareness of that thing, right? So freshness is lost and it becomes a mechanical thing, like your two-wheeler, right? Remember the first time you saw your two-wheeler, right? And the experience that you had when you first time rode it. But then what happened is that you no longer notice it, right? It has become a sign. It has become an algebraic sign. Tavan, thoda be patient. Patience is a good idea. Hold on. I will come to your questions. Don't worry. So learn to be patient. Just try to be with me in the conversation. Right. So what Shklovsky goes on to describe is that our perception of our life works in a particular direction of habitualization and algebraization. And the function of art is to reverse this almost, or create obstacles in your perception, make your perception more difficult. Shatabdi, how can you say what? But are you with me? What I mean by art as defamiliarization is that stone has become a stone, a pebble in your hand. The function of art is to make it stony once again for you. Water that you drink has become a sign. You are habitualized to it. You no longer notice its taste or flavor or the kind of experience it gives you, or a cup of tea, right? So function of art is to create obstacles in perception so that experiencing becomes a challenge almost. It hinders this automatization, according to Slavicsky. Does that make any sense?
Yes, sir. That means the changes which are taken place in the society, which are different from the ancient society, is a result of art.
In a way, I'm not sure about that kind of uh, politics that whether he has in mind. But he is talking about what happens in art. What does art do? कला का काम क्या है जिंदगी में, right? It has a function, and what is that function? Is to defamiliarize our experience for us. We have seen those apples and oranges and curtains hundreds of times, but still life makes you see it, right? Once again, it invites your vision to something that has become so commonplace and banal that you have stopped noticing it, right? So art very often makes us uh, prolong our sensation and perception, right? So look at page number 16. What he says, art is a way of experiencing the artfulness of the object. The object is not important. Apple is not important, but the appliness that art creates is more important, because you experience that object in a different way. So this difference of perception that art creates is important rather than what that object is, right? So this is why it is called formalism, because किस चीज का डिफेमिलियराइज होता है वो इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है. चाय भी हो सकती है, कपड़े भी हो सकते हैं, एनीथिंग. Content is not important, but the way you experience the artfulness of the object becomes primary, and that is what leads us to formalistic approach. And he talks about Coleridge. He doesn't talk about him, but Coleridge has talked about it when he says that the function of poetry is to make unfamiliar familiar and familiar unfamiliar. That's what literature or poetry does. जो चीजें आप पहले से ही familiar हो चुके हो, right, उनको unfamiliar किया जाता है, and that is what is meant by defamiliarization. So is what we mean by defamiliarization clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now coming to other questions like literariness of text, right? And that is the question that Stavan has asked. And what is the relation of art to habit is Jaldi asking. So art is opposite of habit, right? Habitualization rather. Is that clear, Jaldi? For example, everybody knows something about whipping and flogging or beating an animal, but we are so habituated to that activity, so normalized and naturalized it has become, that we don't experience it at all. So he gives example of Tolstoy, where he describes idea of flogging in the following way: to strip people naked, people who have broken the law, to hurl them on floor and wrap their bottoms with switches. Why is it describing this? The function of description is not to give information, but make you re-experience, relive that experience, so that it becomes kind of shock, right? So challenge us and our judgment in a way. Yes, that can be one of the functions of the art Dholakia. Jaldi, I'm sorry. Okay. So, but I didn't get what we mean by Medusa. Shatabdi, can you elaborate on that?
Yes, sir. So, like before, people thought that she was just a monster that was cursed, but after the feminist movement, she turns out to be a person with power. Like she was granted powers. I thought that the concept of giving her powers would be, yes, like Pavan says.
Not exactly. That would be in thinking. Here it is the way techniques are used in art, right? For example, all of you know figures of speech, right? But people don't tell you why are you studying them, because figures of speech are found in everyday life as well. When you call your friend a donkey, right? So figures of speech we use all the time. But when figures of speech are used to defamiliarize something, then it becomes artistic, right? Then it becomes a device. It becomes a technique of writing, right? So literary language, according to Slowinski, uses this device as devices of defamiliarization. For example, look, there is a poem by Robert Burns which goes something like this: "My love is like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. My love is like a melody that is sweetly played in tune." Have you heard of this poem? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, why does poet use it twice? My love is like a red, red rose. Why not red rose? Why is repetition used as a figure of speech?
Maybe for emphasis.
Emphasis. So why is he emphasizes red?
Because of what it symbolizes, the color.
Okay. But do you think by repeating red, he's not just emphasizing redness, he is making you re-experience redness of rose, so that his comparison with his beloved or his love is no longer a cliche. My love is like rose. It is red, red rose. Emphasis is given on re-experiencing the redness of the rose. So redness can bring out connotations of passion, freshness, and so on. He doesn't say reddest of rose. Jaldi, red, red rose. Right. So redness is, you are made to, it becomes an obstacle to your, otherwise red would have become a cliche, a sign, an algebraic notion, to use his term. Right. But he makes you stop at red, right? Re-experience redness. So this repetition is used as a figure of speech in order to defamiliarize the experience of redness. My love is like a red rose. You would not have stopped at its redness, right? And ask this question: why are you saying this? Right? For example, I wandered as lonely as a cloud that floats high over vales and hills. Then all of a sudden I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. right? What is happening is, why does he use words like I wandered as lonely as a cloud that floats over high vales and hills? Why is he using these similes and metaphors, right? Why does he say that he would have said I wandered. He could have said I walked, but he says I wandered. As lonely as a cloud that floats high over vales and hills. Why does he use this simile? Why doesn't he say I wandered as lonely as a cloud only? Anyone?
Sir, I guess to like he defamiliarizes us with clouds because we are so habituated with seeing clouds how they are in the sky, and rather he then to he tries to emphasize just like Robert Burns does by the metaphor of roses. He does through simile. The like saying just that he wandered would be like normal speech, and that is a habit, that how we talk. But to
Right.
break that and to make it more poetic, as to if that's correct.
All of you have eaten chocolates, right? So if you tell your friends I have eaten chocolate, then that becomes informative discourse. But if you describe your experience as if you're doing it for the first time, you want to highlight, make somebody re-experience it, right? So you use a specific kind of descriptiveness, figures of speech, to communicate the fact that it's not just eating chocolate, right? It is something much more than that you are doing. So in Victor Shklovsky, you finally discover what makes art art, right? Or what is literary language. Literary language is not basically use of figures of speech or tropes or devices, but the use of these figures of speech for the purpose of defamiliarization, right? And he goes on to make distinction between, and he also gives several examples. For example, in a story, a horse describes things, right? From point of view, अगर आप change कर देते हो कहानी का, how does horse look at being somebody's horse, right? Look at page 16. And horse is describing. I understood very well what they said about whipping and Christianity, but then I was absolutely in the dark. Now, this is what horse is saying. Huh? What is the meaning of his own? यानी मेरा घोड़ा है, ये मेरा कैसे हुआ? Right? The horse is unable to make out, and he gives the whole description. Right? So the technique of changing point of view is also with certain aim of resensitizing people to some things that they are habituated. Right? Another example that he goes on to give on page number 18 is he describes he's talking about war and peace. How drawing room and theater are described. And then on page number 19, he makes a distinction between prose and poetry, right? Rhythm of prose and rhythm of poetry. Rhythm of prose is not the aim of rhythm or versification is to defamiliarize the usual language, right? Versification is distortion of language because you are putting it to certain rhyme scheme, iambic pentameter. अब iambic pentameter में आप बोलते तो नहीं हो, बराबर है, right? So why is iambic pentameter used at all? is to distort or put a kind of structure on general language so as to heighten your perception of that language, right? And if we go back to last class that we had, where Jakobson is saying that literary use of language. Does anyone remember this conversation that we had? Jakobson.
Yes, sir.
The 6 functions of language, right?
Yes, sir.
And literary, where the message focuses on itself, saying, look, I am the message, right? Message
That's the
is
poetic function, right?
that's the poetic function, right? So one way by which language draws attention to itself is through these devices. That means you're basically, writers are trying to defamiliarize language, right? The everyday use of language. And that is what he has to say. So rhythm of prose is more like moves towards automatization. But automatizing element in poetry, it is exactly the opposite. It defamiliarizes. That's what he says on page 20. And he talks about, so all figures of speech like parallelism, whatever, plot, and yes, plot as well. And this is where Shklovsky, he has not made it quite clear, but in some other essay, he goes on to make a distinction between fabula and Suzette. Right? Fabula is the rough chronological description of a story. Right? जैसे कि मैं सुबह उठा और कॉलेज को आ गया. That is fabula. But the way you narrate it by using defamiliarizing techniques, right, makes it literary. Right? That is the form of what you're writing. Right? So techniques are what makes literary. And as Tavan was saying, Eichenbaum says that the object of study in literature is not literature, but literariness. But this literariness comes through certain use of devices, right? And these devices are used for defamiliarization. It makes literature literary. That is the whole theory. And even figures of speech like imagery. And he's talking of art in general, not just literature. He's talking of painting, music, koi bhi, sculpture, koi bhi kala. Right? What is art? Art is a technique. Technique of what? Technique of defamiliarization. Yes, you can say that. I don't know what Rashomon effect is. But Sophia, we can say that the metaphysical conceits, right?
Yes,
Sophia,
sir.
are used for defamiliarization.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Shatabdi, can you explain what is Rashomon effect?
So it's the effect where like a same plot line is set through different perspectives. Like
Right.
for example, if it is a criminal scene happening, so there are 4 people, but their alibis don't match to each other, and like the whole story is set through their each one of them. Like someone say A says something.
Multiple narrators, fictional narrators, flashback,
Yes, sir.
yeah, foreshadowing, close up, distant shots. All these techniques are techniques of making you re-experience something.
Yes, sir. So it is a part of defamiliarization, right?
Right. Because it's artistic technique. So where is technique as it is used as and the purpose of using techniques. And this is a very influential theory that Sholokhov forwards, right? And he says that new genres are born because the older genres cannot defamiliarize, right? So there is a shift in literary language or artistic language because the established cliched languages cannot make us re-experience things. For example, so many film songs fail to appeal to us as lyrics. We may like them as musical tunes and beats and song, but the words are all cliches. They fail to give us anything new. For example, in terms of love or separation or whatever, because the imagery and the symbolism and the poetics is very cliched, right? And you can see that art as technique by Shlovinsky is one of the important statements of Russian formalism, but also very avant-garde theory of art, right? And avant-garde was a label that was often used to describe the poets who were at the cutting edge of innovation, so that people would often not pay attention to them as they were obscure or they were explicitly sexual or whatever, like Baudelaire. When poets are too innovative for audience, then it is called avant-garde. स्तवन फिर से कूद रहा है एक ऐसे जोड़ के दूसरे ऐसे में।
नहीं सर, ये तो सर हमको पढ़ा दिया है पोएट्री में।
So what is it? Novelization of genres.
So sir, he contrasts epic and novel, and he shows like how novel is still not the fully developed genre, and it's still being there, and all the other genres are influenced by novel. So in a way, they are being novelized. How the language and the way and the techniques are used in novel, it has to be applied on other genres. Otherwise, they become very established and very thrown away. Like
we'll discuss these things at length when we discuss prehistory of novelistic discourse.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Sir, can we call intertextuality as a part of defamiliarization?
If it is used to defamiliarize, then it becomes a technique.
Right. Okay.
For example, Eliot uses allusions, deliberate allusions.
Yes, sir.
To something he alludes to Shakespeare or Milton or Bhagavad Gita or metaphysical poets or whatever. For example, Wasteland ends with Om Shanti, 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 right?
Yes.
He's trying to allude, this intertextual link is trying to allude to other text, but he is trying to create a kind of fragmentariness, right? Create an effect of fragmentariness. So Eliot's Wasteland is an effort to make us re-experience modern life as a wasteland, right? And that which is fragmentary and nothing grows out of it. There is sex, but no love, right? No possibility of love. So everything has become barren, and the possibility of spiritual regeneration has vanished. It has become banjar, wasteland. And he uses this fragmentariness as his technique, so that the whole poetic discourse does not move as a coherent argument, but a kind of hodgepodge, a kind of collage of various kinds of fragments from modern life. So his technique is that of defamiliarizing modern experience.
Right. Sir, so can we say that Tom Stoppard as a playwright also used the same technique?
Yes.
Okay.
In which play? Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead.
Yes, sir. And even Dogs, Macbeth, and Cahoot's Hamlet.
No, I have not read it. But these I have read. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead.
So
he's using these two characters from Hamlet.
Sir,
who have
have the same ideology of using characters. Tom Stoppard. Most of his plays
Yes.
have the same ideology.
Yes. This theater of absurd, right?
Yes, sir.
Uses the device of just using banal conversations. अगर आप सीसीटीवी कैमरा लगा देते हो कैंटीन के ऊपर और लोग जो बोल रहे हैं उसे थिएटर बना के प्रेजेंट करोगे तो वो एब्सर्ड लगेगा, राइट? बिकॉज द स्टेटमेंट इज that by defamiliarizing language of theater, right, making you aware of meaninglessness and absurdity of human existence, right? So they use language to defamiliarize our meaningfulness of experience of life.
Okay.
Yes, that is what Jaldi, that is what Slowinski says. Camus' theory of philosophy, yes, in some way, but this is a kind of post-World War experience, post-World War II, Steuven. So the feeling of absurdity and existential anguish that became prominent in modernist literature was a kind of fallout of immense, disastrous experience of World War II. Right, where even people like Theodor Adorno would say that to write poetry after Auschwitz is atrocity, torture. You cannot think of poetry after Auschwitz or Holocaust. Right, so that's the historical context which connects Camus and Beckett and Stoppard. Right. Anything else? So this, in my view, is one of the most important statement in literary studies if you are a writer yourself, right? So writers are those for whom writing is more difficult than others. That's the definition of a writer. Because writer is trying to make a point by using certain devices. Right. And why does a writer use a device? Then you have an explanation here. One more example can be the famous novel Ulysses by James Joyce, right? It describes what happens in one day in the life of Leopold Bloom, an ordinary middle-class person in Ireland, when he goes out in the morning and comes back to his home, right? And what goes on within his mind, all incoherent, all kinds of associational conversations that keep on bombarding on his consciousness. Something called the stream of consciousness. Why contemporary digital poetry is just decadence of literary writing. Literariness is lost because it's just becoming familiar and cliched. And that happens even in any form, not just digital poetry. Even printed poetry is cliched. Film songs can be cliched. Becoming familiar and cliche is part of habitualization of life itself rather than neoliberalism or digital poetry. Life is familiarizing. पानी तो आप पीते ही हो, उसमें कोई कैपिटलिज्म नहीं है, मगर पानी का पानीपन फिर से आप एक्सपीरियंस करवाने का काम आर्ट का है. Wateriness of water, right? Artisticness. Art is a way of experiencing the artfulness of the object. Object is not important. That's the kind of slogan of formalism. Yes, that keeps on happening in all the periods. The neoliberalism के साथ लेना देना कुछ नहीं है. शेक्सपियर के टाइम पे भी होता था, कबीर के टाइम पे भी होता होगा, because human life moves towards habitualization by default. That's the default mode of our life, and the function of art is to get back the artfulness of the object. बर्ड्स तो बहुत बार देखे हैं, मगर बर्ड का बर्डनेस आर्ट बाहर लाता है. Who decides? Is it always a tricky question? Jaldi. Very tricky question. Politics of canonization is a different game. For example, Vincent van Gogh created a new idiom in visual art, but he had to die in absolute poverty, right? And his paintings are sold at huge amount after his death. So who decides? Maybe time decides. Maybe, as Tavan says, politics of social politics decides. It's a difficult question. Okay, then. So let us. What is then consequentialism and purpose? You can use art to raise political issues, right? That is also possible.
Sir, I'm not talking just about political art. I'm talking about what the power relations in the context of Foucault. How, like it's decided by the society, and it's never like not like a constitution as if there is a panel to decide every year that who is artist and who is not. It's just how
But
power relations in the society function.
there are self-appointed panelists.
Yes, then like the Nobel Prize and all that stuff is very different. But like not everybody is identified as an artist by that.
Yes. So that's a different game.
So I guess the book that you gave, about Peter Widdowson writing on literature, he has talked like really, really well about that, the literary value in literature.
Yes, yes. And we go back to one question that came up very early, and that was about this, क्या कहते हैं उसको, Bertolt Brecht and alienation effect, right? So it also seems to be influenced by this kind of theory of art, alienation effect. But Brecht is using it for a political theater, right? What he is doing is that if I show Aristotelian theater, then as somebody was saying, you identify with the characters and you are absorbed in it. So you cannot sit back and reflect in Aristotelian theater. You're so lost. Right? That is what popular art very often does. That you are lost in the narrative. The alienation theater, or the epic theater that he called it, right? As against theater of tragedy that Aristotle talks about. The epic theater kinds of jolts you into awareness that you are watching this fiction. This such nahi hai. And you start discussing it, theorizing it. You are pushed into kind of objectivity. For example, Mother Courage and Cucumbers. The Mother Courage is a cucumber sandwich seller, and because of war, she profits. Right. So what Brecht is trying to say is probably art is a horrible thing according to middle class morality, but for many people it can be a very lucrative business, even for petty bourgeoisie like Mother Courage. So that's alienation effect. So you may use folk theater in a proscenium space and create that kind of alienation effect, as they do in Vijay Tendulkar's Ghashiram Kotwal, where the chorus functions like walls, right? एक थिएटर को दो हिस्से में बांट देता है कोरस, which is constantly chanting, और कोरस में से ही एक्टर्स आते हैं और सीन परफॉर्म करे वापस कोरस में चले जाते हैं. So I think you should watch that play, Ghashiram Kotwal. I think let us stop here for today, right? Tomorrow we meet at the same time. If there is some change, I will inform you. So who is going to make next presentation? Okay. So you have some more time. It's a longish essay. That's why I was thinking of having someone else. And who is going to make a presentation on Todorov? Because it is a shorter essay.